Live from the KwaZulu-Natal Rock, the Provincial Results Operations Centre based at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. It is indeed a beautiful setting. Now, the IEC staff will be pretty busy here over the next couple of days. Nationally, there's approximately 212,000 electoral staff members who were recruited and trained for these elections. And in KZN, we're told, we understand there's around 45,000 electoral staff that will be deployed across the province, ensuring that this, the fifth national and provincial elections, goes according to plan. Now, we plan to speak to an IEC official, Ntombifuthi Masinga. She's the electoral operations manager at the IEC a bit later on. But first, I want to take you across over to my colleague Ayanda Mshlongo. Now, she's at the Durban CBD. She's there for the final police election deployment. We know there's around about 17,000 police officers that will be deployed across the province to keep this province safe in terms of the elections, free and fair, maintain that at all times. Let me hand it over now to Ayanda Mshlongo at the Durban CBD. Ayanda, very good morning to you. What's been happening there this morning?
A very good morning to you, Blaine, from a very wet Durban CBD. The rain is coming down fast on us. But Blaine, as you said, in order for an election, we have to have a free and fair election. And as you've been saying, definitely one that has to be safe. You are alluding to the 17,000 cops. And indeed, I can tell you, I don't know whether you can see there are a few buses, 2 or 3 buses behind us there, Blaine. Earlier on, we had about, as you're saying, the 17,000 police officers. They were here where we were, getting their last briefing from the police Provincial Commissioner General Mamunye Ngobeni, as well as the MEC for Community Safety, Willis Mchunu. These police officers, Blaine, have now heading out to the various parts of our province, some travelling as far as Pongolo near Swaziland, others are going down to as far as Matatiela on the south of Durban, and that is bordering the Eastern Cape. But to tell us more, Blaine, about these deployments, I'm joined by Kwanele Ncalane, the provincial spokesperson for the Department of Community Safety. Kwanele, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and good morning to all the viewers at home.
A very important message, Kwanele, that we heard from the police chiefs as well as the MEC this morning to the police officers.
Yes, absolutely. As you have witnessed today, that it was an official parade and a send-off of all the members of the South African Police Service who will be assisting and monitoring elections across the province of KwaZulu-Natal. You'll recall that the provincial commissioner has mentioned that more than 17,000 police officers have been deployed. But we have also gone to an extent of categorizing stations. There are high-priority stations, which are high-risk areas. There are medium, and there are also normal voting stations, which are stabilized. Therefore, these police officers will be ensuring that working on the ground, working with other security agencies, the situation is normal on the ground, and to ensure that there are no criminal activities or anything that might hinder the province delivering free and peaceful elections. Therefore, from where we are sitting as the government of KwaZulu-Natal, we are satisfied that we've done all the groundwork, we've done all produced all the necessary measures to ensure that we deliver peaceful and stable elections in the province.
I might just ask, Kwanele, in terms of the deployment, of course, you are speaking about those volatile areas. Have they been adequately staffed in terms of the number of police that are going to be deployed to the various areas, as well as resources? Do they have the adequate resources to be able to carry out their duties?
Well, we are satisfied as well that there have been a lot of planning that went in through the multi-party committee, which is chaired by MEC Willis Mchunu. There's been discussions in terms of prioritizing areas which are perceived as hotspot areas, and there's been a lot of discussions and planning prior to the election that has taken place. Therefore, the areas like Wembezi, Nescott, areas like Kwamoshu Hostel, already there have been deployment in those areas even before we come to the elections. So we are satisfied that with the additional police officers that are deployed to those areas, things can even get better. So we will be monitoring, though, also how the police are conducting their work. If there are any challenges, together as the Department of Community Safety with the management of the police, will be able to intervene and address those areas.
Kwanele, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Blaine, that was Kwanele Ncalane, the spokesperson for the Department of Community Safety, just telling us, of course, about those police officers that are now heading out to ensure that we have a free and fair, and most importantly, a safe election. I want to thank Kwanele for joining us. You see the rain is coming. coming down, Plain, and I'm going to hand it back to you now.
Yeah, Ayanda, thank you very much for braving the rainy weather down in Durban. One of the hardest working journalists in town, Ayanda Ncalane, giving us all the latest information with regards to police deployment, as well as we'll stay in touch with throughout the next couple of days, finding out all the latest election news. Now, let's further this conversation. Let's talk about the IEC. Now, doing their job is not an easy task. We know about the 45,000 electoral staff that will be deployed in KwaZulu-Natal. We're told there's about 212,000 nationally that were trained and recruited for this specific job. Let's talk more about this. And Futhi Masinga from the IEC joins me now live. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Being an IEC official at the 5th national and provincial elections is not for the faint-hearted, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a kind of environment where you need to be able to remain calm and controlled in whatever the situation is, but as well be working whatever you're doing in the public domain, and everyone is watching you and everyone is interested in what you are doing. There are even people who are there to seem to want to co-manage the process with you, but the good thing is that the environment is very controlled, over-regulated. You just know what has to be done.
But there are challenges, isn't it? Especially in KwaZulu-Natal, largely rural in many parts. It gets more tricky in rural areas.
Definitely, but the good thing about rural areas is that the numbers per voting station are lower because the population is sparse in those areas, and therefore for us to manage the distances that people travel between voting stations, we are forced to keep the number of voters per voting station lower. Yeah. So we're dealing with lower figures in rural areas. But the interesting thing about rural areas as well compared to urban cities, people tend to vote early. They don't want doing things in the dark like people in the cities. So we know pretty much early in the rural areas how many people have voted, and we tend to finish the processes quite earlier compared to the cities.
We are talking about, over 4,700 voting stations. Yes. in this province. We just heard from Ayanda Ncalane down with regards to police deployment. Has the IEC identified any hotspots, any areas that has been classified as high risk in KwaZulu-Natal?
We do have areas that have been deemed high risk, mainly because of the incidents that have happened in the build-up to the elections. In your places like KwaNongoma, your escort areas, the KwaMashu hostel in eThekwini, and then you also have sporadic cases where things have suddenly happened now that were not there before, where you suddenly have sporadic service delivery protests in some municipalities. But we're working very closely with the security establishment in the country to try and keep the environment calm so that people still are confident that they can go out and vote safely in our voting stations tomorrow. So we keep picking up pockets of these happening throughout the province, but we are managing them, I'll say, because the police are working very closely with us on this one.
The police deployment notwithstanding, are you confident that you have enough electoral staff to ensure that these elections are free and fair?
Absolutely. What is happening as well is that other than the number that has been given per voting station, based on the number of people that have registered, people can continuously request additional staff on our system if they feel they need to augment capacity in any of the voting stations. So there is no limit in terms of how many people can work in a voting station. It can change as things progress in various municipalities. So we're pretty confident. We've trained everyone that works in our voting stations, and training has been very comprehensive this time around because we are preparing for all sorts of eventualities, and we keep improving from the gaps that were picked up in the previous election. You'll see our training approach and strategy changes election after election as we learn from previous elections that we've done.
Yeah, so indeed rigorous training. I understand that there's about 175 private sector lawyers as